So that was the power guard. Now I'm going to start on some of the tactics with the weak guard. As I said before, there's not a lot to say about the weak guard. It's mainly a transitional guard, something you're going to move through, but not necessarily stay in for very long. One thing that's interesting to note about the weak guard is it's good for helping you change direction. So if you're coming, if you start here and you parry here, you can change direction this way, change momentum, get in a different angle of attack, maybe something your opponent's not expecting. It's useful for that. That's a good thing you can do. And then also, like I was saying earlier, you come across here, pommel, blade, you can slide up their blade, hit their hands. You have different options there, but that's mainly what your weak guard is going to be for. It's more of a, like I said, a transitional guard. One thing I wanted to go over that gets talked about quite a bit is dual wielding, Jarkai as it's called. This is one, dual wielding actually can be quite strong here. Basically you're going to end up using your strong guard and your power guard at the same time. Gives you some defensive options here that can open up some holes to use the slower but more powerful offensive options of your power guard. Again, just like foregrip, Jarkai, using two, you want to get good with one before you try and use two. I've done a little bit with two reversed. It was fun. I will say that it was a lot of fun, but I definitely don't have the proficiency. I'm willing to admit that I don't have the proficiency to really pull it off. I mean, I did okay, but there were some mistakes I made, and I could have done better. Again, and also just like in the forward grip, you want to be careful of getting yourself crossed up, getting in the wrong area there. And speaking of that, a lot of people see the Star Killer crossed block. That's worthless. I'm sorry. I have, even in the forward Jarkai, they've kind of demonstrated that the actual cross block doesn't work, but you can kind of use a little bit of one to move your opponent's blade around. In the reverse grip, it's completely worthless. There's absolutely no reason to use it. I've been thinking about this for a while, trying to find a way to use it, and I can't come up with one. As far as that goes, there are a lot of other variations of Jarkai. I've been talking about using both backhanded. As has been said before, you can use main hand foregrip, offhand reverse grip. Gives you some different options that way. Keeping this one forward. One of them that I kind of like is doing this, using more of a strong guard with the reverse grip and my forward grip in the back. A little bit more unorthodox, but gives you again some of the defensive stuff here, sweeping across, and you can still do a lot of your forward grip stuff as well. And it just gives you different options that way. So, different things you can try. Not saying that all of them are necessarily going to work for everyone. Hopefully I'm getting that point across well, that I don't expect all of this to work all the time. But even if it works some of the time, that's good. Moving on from there, one thing that I have focused on quite a bit in my reverse grip stuff is offhand or open hand techniques. Things that you use essentially to try and create openings to use saber-based attacks. You might use a punch to throw your opponent off balance so that you can get a sweeping attack there. And especially since there's so much time spent in very close range, especially in your strong guard, you're going to spend more time in close. Being able to use those punches, throws, kicks, elbows et cetera, et cetera. Pommel, even the pommel's good for setting that up. Being able to use that to create an opening is a very good thing. One that I will, against my better judgment, demonstrate here is using, and let me preface this by saying, if you are trained in the martial arts, I know I asked for comments and criticisms. Please don't criticize me here. I know my form sucks. I'm well aware of it. But one thing that I wanted to bring up is using, just as an example, starting in a strong guard and using a parry into a spinning back kick to create an opening for one of the more powerful power guard style attacks. So this is hardwood. I don't have a lot of room when I'm barefoot, so I'm going to try and do it in tennis shoes. Should work. It worked earlier. We'll give it a shot again. So see if we can demonstrate this here. We start power guard. Okay. Parry, step, kick, and around. Okay. Now obviously I lost my balance a little bit there. Incidentally, I've been experimenting with this a little bit. Balance is a big thing on this one, and it's actually interesting to me. Having, doing the spinning back kick with nothing in your hands versus doing it with something in your hands. You have a lot of dynamics going there because your hands are going to have to help your balance a lot. The other thing I've noticed is I tried doing it with forward grip, and it was actually a lot harder because of the, I don't know, we assume lightsaber blades have no weight. Unfortunately, ours do. It's just laws of physics right now. Don't let us make an actual weightless blade. The blade extending out so far, and when I was spinning around, it pulled me enough backwards that it was very, very difficult for me to compensate for that and not fall over. Whereas with the reverse grip, when you're coming around, you're actually able to keep the blade fairly stationary, and it doesn't affect your, or at least for me, it doesn't affect my balance nearly as much as when I was using the forward grip. So that may be an advantage, depending on the person. I don't know, some people may have better balance than me. But again, just as an example, using that technique to create an opening, starting here and coming around. Hopefully that gets, at least gets the wheels turning, gets the concept across. That's my idea here, is trying to get the concept across. I understand my form is probably terrible as far as the actual kick goes. I understand that. But the main thing I'm trying to do here is get the idea, get the concept across. Moving on from there, one thing that I wanted to concentrate on as well is the use of the false edge, or the back edge of the blade. Now, granted, these are lightsabers, completely round, omnidirectional blade. We don't technically have a false edge, but really we do. This, if you're holding the blade, this part would technically be your forward edge. This part would be your false edge. Using that, obviously, it's not something that you're going to use a lot, especially with the reverse grip, because it requires you to be so close to your opponent. One thing that I have done, and I demonstrate this in one of the Dulans, or excuse me, one of the trajectories of the Dulan, is go from a high parry to a false edge strike across the midsection. And it requires a little bit of movement to move laterally, like I was saying, move laterally around the opponent, and then again moving towards the strike rather than away from the strike. So again, it's just kind of a different tactic that I've kind of been working on. Other thing here, you may have noticed throughout this whole thing that I haven't really talked about spins or flourishes at all. That's for good reason. It's been said that in forward grip they are marginally useful at best. In the reverse grip, I found that they are even less useful than that. They're basically worthless. Main reason being is there's only one. You know, in the reverse grip, you've basically got this spin. That's pretty much it. I mean, you might be able to kind of go behind your back a little bit like that, but really, that's all you got. And there's not a lot of really practical application for that, at least not that I was able to find. So it just really isn't useful. One other thing that the reverse grip does well is relentless attacks, relentless strikes. You know, once you gain the initiative, once you gain momentum, keep that momentum, keep keep the strikes coming. It's kind of what I was talking about a little earlier with the parry into the spinning back kick into the attack. You're just keeping that coming. I demonstrate this a little bit in trajectory 1 of the Duan. I'm trying to keep the attacks coming, create openings, and then take advantage of those openings. The other thing here, and this is something that I haven't really explored as much. I've typically been concentrating on single-handed reverse grip, but the other thing is two-handed reverse grip. How do you do, with two hands? The way I'm approaching it is essentially to pretend I've got a staff with one blade. Obviously this creates a little bit of different dynamic because you only have the one blade. But there's a couple of advantages that having, two hands on it gives you as far as movement and things go. You get, first, it favors a longer hill. I've discovered that using the initiate hills are a little too short to be able to do this effectively. But it helps, with two hands, it helps to reduce or compensate for the weakness in the grip. Gives you a little bit more leverage as far as blocks and parries and things go. That's not to say that it completely negates the issue, but it does help compensate for it a little bit. It does give you a little bit less range because rather than being able to extend completely with your one hand, now you've got both hands on it, and you can only extend as far as your second hand can go. But it can help you add power by giving you leverage to pull against the weapon. And you might notice there I've switched grips with my reverse, or my second hand, going from here to here as needed. That's also another thing to take a look at. And you're going to switch from one to two-handed and back as needed. The other thing that would be interesting to look at is parallels between some of the forms. For example, in Shi Shou, there's one of the things where you take the saber, you start here and come up. That same thing can be done with the reverse grip, starting in your power guard, coming up. Okay. You get essentially the same movement, and it allows a slightly different dynamic as far as where you start, how you finish, and where you go from there. The other thing is, and this is something I found interesting, as far as going through and maybe doing attacks like that, or coming across like this. For me, I've compared it almost to how you push something. If I were to try and push my desk or push a chair or a person even, I'm going to push them this way. I'm not going to turn my hand over and try and push that way, which is essentially what we're doing here. We're trying to push the saber this way versus pushing it this way. Okay, pushing it through like that. This is one that I just came up with here very, very, very recently, have not had a chance to test it. Hopefully someone else out there can do that and get back to us on that one. But that's one that it kind of hit me that, the difference between pushing with, an overhanded grip like this with, on the saber that way, or pushing underhanded like this, going this way. Again, like I said, it's a very, very recent idea for me, but it's something that I think could at least have an effect on the performance of the system of the reverse grip. I think that about does it for tactics. Again, like I said, nothing is 100% effective. Nothing is right for everyone. I'm just trying to go through things in my mind and see if I can find advantages and disadvantages that can be exploited or compensated for, and then going from there.